Hey everyone, today our class is asynchronous. I totally messed up on the timing and thought I would be with you all, and so I'm making the recording now. So, oh boy. So, today we're going to be looking at the fall of the Aztec Empire. We've talked about a lot of the amazing, great things that they were able to accomplish and do with their capital city of Tenochtitlan, and now we're going to see how it's going to come to all crashing end with Cortez and his army of 550 men. So while we're getting started, I want you to be thinking about how could 550 men defeat the Aztec Empire? I mean, yesterday we just talked about how Tenochtitlan had 5 million people perhaps living there. So let's get to that today. Obviously, we're going to skip going over the homework, and you can go click on our schedule to sing your song. But let's get to how the Aztecs, sorry, were conquered. All right, switching my display settings there. There we go. The conquista, which is the Spanish word for conquest. All right, so we're just going to be looking at the beginnings of this, the first interactions that we're going to have. We won't get into the actual conquest today. So we're going to have the Spanish appearing in the early 1500s. Now, this is going to kind of be a fortuitous time for the Spanish to come because the Aztecs are in disarray. There's been civil war. Now, we know that the Aztecs were constantly at war, constantly conquering, and people are rebelling against them. Because remember, the Aztecs were harsh. They would force you to send some of your people to become human sacrifices. And so the Aztec armies are scattered all over the empire, battling rebellions, sometimes even losing some of these battles. And think about it, war is expensive. Producing all of the natural resources for the weapons, the armor, the uniforms, feeding of the soldiers, and then, of course, the toll that war does on land, destroying it, making it so you can't go and be farming or gathering resources. And not to mention, the worst of these would be the life or the cost of human life. So the Aztecs are in a really rough spot, and then come the Spanish. Now, another thing to think about too is because they're fighting these wars, they're getting less tribute because people are rebelling. They're saying, we aren't going to pay you. And then, like I had said, less production of food, so we have famine. And so what happens is Moctezuma is going to go and say to the places that hadn't rebelled, I want more. And of course, then that's going to push even more groups into rebellion. So yeah, Aztecs are in a rough spot. It's one of those things. The Aztecs, they built their empire so quickly. It took 200 years for them to create the massive empire that they did, and it probably was more like a house of cards. It was destined to fall because the foundations weren't strong. All right. So now, this is a native account of the arrival of the Spanish. These are things that you don't have to write down here, but are interesting for us. A thing like a ball of stone flies out of their bellies and rains fire. If the ball hits a tree, it blows away in splinters, as though a magician had blown it away from inside. Right there, they're talking about their cannonballs, because we have to remember too, the Aztecs are using Stone Age technology. So a thing like a cannon is going to be like magic, and very, very scary magic. Their battle dress and their arms are all made of iron. They are carried on their backs of stags, which horses, wherever they like to go. This is another thing. The Aztecs, they're not going to ride animals into battle. They're not going to have horses. So this is going to be another thing. They're not going to have metal armor. So one of the things that the Aztecs are in Stone Age technology, but they do know about metal. They do things especially with gold. But yeah, they don't use it for weapons or armor or tools. Their skin is white, as though made of chalk. Their dogs are great monsters with flat ears and long tongues, which hang out. Yeah, and so there also aren't going to have really interactions with people of lighter complexions. So this is going to be another thing that's going to be unsettling to them. They've never seen people like this before. I mean, they're dogs. They describe them as monsters.